bracket are officially gone, and this, Weldon, is what my bracket needs to have happen to it right now. That's where I'm at.
Well, see, that's why you should have did what I did. I filled out a women's bracket.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got to tell you right now, my women's bracket is looking really good.
Because you got both the teams in the finals, don't you?
Oh, I got them all. I got all Final Four. My
Did you
Final
really?
Four, yeah. And then Stanford wasn't the most likely choice to make the Final Four, although it's one of those things where you pick like an Elite Eight upset, that might take you far. So my women's bracket is looking good. UConn, Notre Dame, and I got UConn winning it. So, hey. My women's bracket looking good.
I think you got lucky that UConn or that Notre Dame had a player go out with an ACL.
Yeah. No. Hey.
This is our women's basketball for the year.
But you know what? They look good though. They look good against Maryland. Maryland was kind of that Cinderella team. Notre Dame took them out without their top player. Gino better watch out because Muffet McGraw and company are coming.
Oh Lord, yeah. Well, we've got that game. That's what you're going to get about the analysis of that game.
Right.
But we've got UConn, Kentucky, NCAA Tournament Championship tonight. We'll discuss that game here in a little bit. The Indiana Pacers, some of the trouble they're going through, losing a lot of games lately, losing their stranglehold on the 1 seed out of the East in the NBA.
Yeah,
Also, Kevin Durant. I want to talk a little bit about. I think he's going to win the MVP in the NBA, but I think he's got something that Weldon was going to call ring pressure starting to build on him, and I like the analogy and the thoughts that Weldon brought on that before the show. So we'll talk about that. Also, spring scrimmage, got some information on the Hogs from some practice reports that we read from this Saturday's first spring football scrimmage. So there are some things that we can debate and talk about from that, local sports as well. So looking forward to a good show today. You can give us a call at 968 News anytime throughout the hour. We'll be here till noon. 968-6397. You can answer today's CrossFit Russellville poll question. Who do you have in tonight's NCAA championship game, UConn or Kentucky? We've got a two-parter here, though, because there's another one. Also, are you encouraged or discouraged to hear that Arkansas's defense got 11 sacks? So on the flip side, the Arkansas offense allowed 11 sacks on quarterbacks during the first scrimmage on Saturday. That could be an encouraging glass half full or glass half empty type discussion that you could be thinking about today. So we've got a lot of stuff on today's docket. Well, we can start out with local sports. Know that spring sports are a very busy time at all the schools. You've got track, which the Cyclone relays were this last Friday at Russellville High School. You've got baseball, softball, soccer. You've got just a whole bunch of stuff going on. We know that the Russellville softball team has just been rolling along, which, we've talked about this before with Andrea Kendrick on the bump. It's pretty much a done deal that she's going to keep them in every game.
Yeah.
The Alabama signee, she's very, very good, and the Russellville ladies are benefiting not only from having her on the team, but having that state championship swagger.
Yeah.
They won the 6A last year, got beaten the finals 2 years ago, so really they're going for a three-peat in the championship game, at least appearances-wise, this year, and they look to be right on course.
Yeah, still undefeated on the year. They're just flat out waxing people. I mean, with Andrea Kendrick, you understand that you score one run, that's almost like 5 runs as far as you can get a run on the board. You have a chance. But, I'm looking at some scores now, and they've been putting some runs on the board. 18 to nothing, 22 to nothing. Well, that was Little Rock Hall. That probably tells me a little bit about Little Rock Hall right there. In addition to Russellville being really good. But you get beat 18 to nothing and 22 to nothing, it tells me a little bit about you. But still, 13 against Southside, 15 against Parkview, 19 against Parkview, 11 against Northside. I mean, they have been putting some runs on the board with that pitching. If they can defend the way Coach Sisson wants them to defend, it's going to be tough to keep them from repeating.
They're very, very good, the Russellville baseball team, kind of trying to figure things out. One of the things about the baseball team is that they're still recovering from a couple of years ago when they had like 8 seniors that were just huge contributors. And it's kind of like what the Russellville girls basketball team has had to go through, and they had to rely on those people for so long. They had to kind of figure out and plug holes the next couple of years, and the Russellville baseball team's still trying to do that. They're playing pretty well, but they're playing competition that's pretty good. So,
Yeah, a good team.
6A baseball is no joke, and they're playing some 7A teams as well. We know that the Pottsville baseball team played Subiaco on Friday night and took a loss, but they're looking to bounce back. They play in the boot game. That's next Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. They're at Dardanelle. Actually, I think it's back at Pottsville this year.
It was year 3 for this, right?
Year 3 for the boot game. That's a really, really cool experience, I know, for those guys. For those that aren't aware, the McCrotty brothers, Wes and Will, both coaches, baseball coaches at Pottsville and Dardanelle, respectively, and they started this thing a couple of years ago to keep the attention off of the brothers being, coach. Oh, this is the thing every year. The brothers coaching against each other. They decided to make it a big deal for another reason, and they wanted to put the game around an event that raised money for the Wounded Warrior Project. And the boot campaign is what they were doing with that. They were giving boots. It was really the original plan was to play in boots, and then they realized that would just
work.
The quality of the game, especially since this is a conference game, would go down quite a bit if they're running the bases in boots, and if somebody gets hurt, that would be really bad.
Yeah.
But either way, the last 2 years has been a really, really cool experience to watch those two teams, and it doesn't hurt that Pottsville and Dardanelle are rivals and in the same conference, and so it all adds together to mean a pretty good game.
It's good to use, you're going to get attention anyway because you have brothers squaring off. It's good to use that attention for a beneficiary, aspect. And so, but it reminds me, you mentioned playing in boots. You remember the game the Lakers and Celtics played a few years ago, and they came out in short shorts, trying to be like the 1980s, and then it came out at halftime. They were like, we can't play in these. So both the Lakers and the Celtics had to switch back into regular shorts. Playing in boots would kind of be similar to that. So, but still, the game's got a really good cause. People are going to be there anyway because the McCrotties are squaring off, and it should be a good matchup.
It definitely is. And so we got some information from the Pottsville softball team. They won 14-4 in their latest game. Actually, that was in the Tyson Classic. That was their first game against Nemo Vista. They won, and then they lost 9-1 to Ozark. Had 6 errors in that game, and Coach will tell you, you have 6 errors in a game, you're going to get beat. So he was not real excited about the way that game went, but he was excited about the fact that they got an early win over Nemo Vista. So there's a little bit of Pottsville softball information. Got a little bit of information from the Atkins-Pottsville alumni basketball game. I'm trying to figure out who won the old man game. Last year it was the Atkins old guys that won, and then the Pottsville women and younger guys won. I know that the Pottsville younger guys won by 2 points Saturday night in the alumni game. Our boy Garrett Hill had 26, and they came from 18-3 down early on. They were down 15 points early on. Garrett helped them come back and win the game there. The Pottsville men take down Terrence Bobo and the Atkins Red Devils alums.
Yeah. Well, we knew it was going to be a good matchup. Obviously, Garrett's still playing. Terrence, you got guys on both sides. They're still young enough to not hurt anything when they play. But a few years, all these guys are going to be in that other game. And then you're going to have some people who are already in that other game trying to hold on because they won't be able to play in any game a few years later. So, I want to see this thing grow and evolve over the years. I know it was a great event. I know they were able to raise some money. And from what I heard, it was even better than it was last year. Last year was a success. They planned it as much as they could, but it was sort of a spur of the moment thing. This year, even more planning, even more gifts and giveaways and opportunities to interact. So they're going to keep pushing the envelope. And we had Chris on the other day. He's done a really good job getting it together, and the people organized have done a sensational job. So I'm glad it went off without a hitch.
Yeah, he said that there was some conflicts of some stuff that was going on, but they still raised $1,000 for the athletic program. Yeah. So that's good that they were able to. On the same weekend that Captain America came out, they were able to get some folks to come out there for their game instead. That's only partially a joke. Yeah, you had the Final Four on that Saturday. You had one of the big Marvel movies that everybody wanted to go watch. I went and watched it Friday night. I ain't even going to complain. And I would have gone and watched, but I was barely able to function and move from playing a little softball on Saturday. So I was really, really sore and tired.
So you didn't get to win your $1,000 bucks.
No, I wouldn't have been able to get it there from half court. You'd had to get me a wheelchair, and I had to throw it one-handed because
that's a Paul Pierce.
I wouldn't have been able to do it. I'm glad for Chris's sake though, because I'd hate for him to have to pay out that $1,000.
Oh, so nobody got it. From
I don't know. I didn't ask, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it because I didn't want them to have to pay me, and I just be a
That's
little
so
bit of a
nice
sticky
of you.
situation. Yeah, a little messy. A guy that got in free is going to take money out like that.
Yeah,
Just I didn't feel like being that guy.
professional,
I
taking
kinda
money.
am a professional, aren't I? So-
Hey.
Yeah. Instead, I was sweating it, playing some softball, and wasn't able to make it. So, good win for the younger Apaches. I don't know who won the other games. I'll have to ask real quickly to see who won the older guys. I know the older guys from Atkins can go, so I wouldn't have been surprised if they won that one again. And then the Pottsville women, it looked like they got a little bit more loaded this year too, so I wouldn't be surprised if Pottsville and if things kind of went the same way they went last year. So we'll find out and let you know about that. Finally, in our local sports look, We've been telling you about the banquet, the Brightest Stars banquet, May 29th at Russellville High School, and we've got the nomination forms all in, and I'm starting to put those together. Emily and I are going to work on a ballot this week, and we're going to get it back to the coaches. Every school and every sport has now been accounted for. Not that every school has sent us in nominees from every sport, but every sport is accounted for, and every school has sent in a nominee for at least one sport. So everybody's going to get at least some sort of recognition. Trying to think of how I'm going to do it to sort of award. And I'm going to look. There are several names. There's probably nearly 100 names on this list of players that have been nominated by their coaches, and I think that they each deserve something. I'm going to try to get them a little certificate or something just to say, you were nominated as a Brightest Star and have a chance to be the player of the year in your sport. And I think that's a cool deal.
Yeah, that'd be a really good idea. It's almost like a little parting gift because it is something to be nominated. I mean, even if you're not a finalist, even if you don't win or if you're a finalist, whatever, it's still great just to be acknowledged. It's great that you were nominated. Obviously, your coach saw something in you. Whatever your team did, whatever success you had that season, you were a part of it, and your coach took note of it. So I think it's great to get those guys involved, and we got some really good athletes in there. We've talked about them for years: football, basketball, baseball, softball, track, soccer, you name it. We have a lot of really good athletes, Mark. I know you referenced a couple of springs ago the busy summer you had because so many area teams were competing in championships in various sports, and so we're going to see the same thing pretty soon again. We've got a lot of good young athletes in these schools. So Brightest Stars Banquet, acknowledging your top athletes. Come out and be a part of it. $25 Italian Garden catered, Mark. You can't beat it.
I'm going to talk with Aaron Peters today and get some details ironed out. We do have the buffet coming, sort of buffet style. I think you're going to get your plate just like you would, but we're going to do it pretty quickly, express service, so that we can award these players. I just counted it up real quickly, unless I miscounted. We got 96 athletes nominated.
Okay.
That's a pretty cool deal that you're going to have 96 athletes having the chance to compete for an award. Now the coaches are going to decide who wins. It's not on us. We don't have to worry about that. But we're at least going to have at least one athlete from each school that will be nominated for some Brightest Stars Banquet award and have a chance to be Player of the Year. Looking forward to doing that with Help Network and River Valley Leader through the Sports Blitz. We've got a lot of basketball topics. It is pretty heavy basketball today. Before we get to football here on the Sports Blitz, stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
Folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
We are still here. This is the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, and not Maddie Lassiter. Got Emily Young behind the controls right now, controlling our production value, making us sound all good and running commercials and just doing all this good stuff for us today on a Monday. And it's National Championship Day. And the best, I wish we had music. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Music, it's coming to an end.
Yeah,
today
Jamaican
is
version.
the best and worst day in college basketball. I always say the Super Bowl is the best and worst day in sports. It's like football's over, but it's still the greatest. And so, if you're going by that same logic in college basketball, today's the best and worst day.
I never hear you say that about the World Series when it's over.
I just rejoice.
You're like, yes, football season is right in the thick of it now. Yeah, but with UConn and Kentucky, Mark, it's our national championship matchup, 7 and an 8 seed. How about that? I mean, we knew the seedings were a little bit strange. Michigan State a 4, Louisville a 4, Kentucky, even though they struggled, still an 8. That was kind of a strange seeding. But look at these teams and how they got here. UConn was a team who a lot of people thought would lose to St. Joe's in the round of 64, and they almost did. They got down in that game. And they make it through that one. They beat 2-seed Villanova. They beat Iowa State. They beat Michigan State. Just improbable. And they take out the #1 overall seed Florida. On the other end, Kentucky. Yeah, they were playing better in the SEC tournament, but you didn't know. They get past Kansas State in a little bit of a low-scoring game. They beat Wichita close, Louisville. The journey these teams have gone through to get here alone makes that intriguing, in addition to the matchup that we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Yeah, I'd have to look at my torn-up bracket to tell you what they've gone through to get here. But let me pull out one of you guys' brackets, because it frustrated me that Florida was my last team left in it, and they got beat. But it kind of went exactly how Weldon said it might. Hey, if Florida does what they've done so far and they let teams hang around, UConn can beat them. And to your credit, that's exactly what happened. I don't know. The way both of these teams have played so far, it seems like Kentucky should be the favorite to win, but they're kind of on the same path, so to speak, that Florida was on, where they just kind of let people hang around, and then Aaron Harrison makes some crazy three. I don't know if you've seen that graphic where he hits 3 threes from game-winning threes, basically from the same spot. At least 2 of them were for sure, and just incredible the clutch gene, so to speak, as old Skip would say. That he's got to be able to just step up in big moments and hit big. One of them was a long three, an NBA range three, the last one, but. In that same vein, if they're allowing UConn to hang around like that, Shabazz Napier can beat them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with Florida. I mean, Florida, you had to be afraid sooner or later would catch up with them. I mean, they let Albany and Pitt and Dayton, they let all these teams who were inferior hang around, and even though they were the better team, they don't blow people out. I think it finally caught up to them. The thing with Kentucky and UConn is they've both gotten off to bad starts at times during the tournament. And I think it'll be interesting to see who comes out tonight and gets off to the better start, because UConn has faced double-digit deficits in this tournament. So has Kentucky, and they've been able to overcome them. Well, somebody's got to get off to a good start, or maybe they'll both be terrible, and it'll be 6-5 halfway through the first half. So I think that'll be the main thing to watch. You look at what's gotten UConn here; it's been their defensive pressure, not full court Arkansas style, but just once you cross half court, Boatwright and Napier, they get in your shirt. Now, one thing that I've noticed is they've done this against small guards primarily. Appling and Travis Trice, really good, but not that big. Wilbekin and Frazier, Wilbekin not that big, although, by the way, I think Wilbekin was a lot less than 100%. I think that we have to point that out in fairness. But still, the Harrisons are 6'5", 6'6". Can they pressure them like they've pressured those smaller guards? And that's why I told you before the show, I think foul trouble is another big one, because if they try to put some heat on them and those Harrisons just bounce them off and get to the basket and draw fouls on them, that's going to put UConn behind the 8 ball. DeAndre Daniels got to bang with Johnson or Randall. So he likes to get out there and shoot, but he's going to get worn down defensively banging with Randall or Johnson. His foul situation is another one I want to watch.
I'm kind of interested to see if Kentucky, man, at some point there's always that line that at this point in the year they're not freshmen anymore.
Right,
they're sophomores now. But UConn, Shabazz Napier and this team seems like the old savvy vet, and at some point in time you just expect for the old savvy vet to go ahead and knock them off. But Kentucky, talent-wise, if you're just to stack up talent for talent, it's not even close. Kentucky's going to win this game, but that's why it's such an intriguing thing to me. I want to say Kentucky's going to win the game, not because I want Kentucky to win, but I had Florida winning it. So, but if I had Florida winning it and UConn knocked them off, well, it should not go with UConn. So I'm going back and forth here, knowing that Shabazz Napier is playing. Good Lord, he's playing Kemba Walker-esque, just carrying his team. I always say, and things are even take the best player. I'm still, though, leaning toward Kentucky because there are so many different things that they can do. We hadn't talked a whole lot about Julius Randle because Aaron Harrison hit all these big shots to end the games. Haven't heard too much from the other Harrison. Haven't heard a whole lot. James Young was very good at the beginning of the game on Saturday. But, I'm going to trust Kentucky and roll with them in a close one, but it's just because of the depth of talent that they've got. I kind of wish Willie Cauley-Stein was playing for them, but he's been ruled out. But Alex Poitras has played pretty well too, though. So
yeah, when they get guys like Poitras playing well, Marcus Lee, good Lord, that dunk he had. That dude, if he leaves after next year, or you give him another year, he is going to be something of a player. That dude can get up and he's long. I'm like you. It's really tough for me. I think UConn does have an advantage from this standpoint. I think they're a lot more comfortable playing in a disjointed basketball game than Kentucky, because you look at Louisville. Louisville, they want to rip and run, no matter what. They want to press, get the game going. Wisconsin, they didn't want to rip and run, but they did want to play with a certain bounce, a certain pace to get their shooters going and kind of getting a little bit of a rhythm. I think teams that want to play with a little more rhythm, that helps those young kids get confidence in their shots, kind of break a sweat. But if the game gets disjointed and there's long scoring droughts and it's ugly basketball and people are bricking shots and those freshmen can't get the little swag going and hit some shots to get confident, UConn's more comfortable playing in that type of basketball. They can get down 16-4 and then snap. Nothing happens with their confidence. And so I think it'll be an ugly game like that, and UConn's a little bit more comfortable. It's tough to make a pick, though. I'm going to go ahead and lean with UConn. If Kentucky wins, it won't be a surprise. I'll go with UConn in a game in the 60s, game played in the 60s.
I was going to say, if I had to set the over-under at 70 points for the winner, you would go under?
I would go under, yeah. I would have a 10 because I think UConn can make the game ugly. And Kentucky, they've won some ugly games. I'm not saying Kentucky can't win ugly, but guys like James Young and the Harrisons, you see stretches where they're not playing well or they disappear. And that's because the game has no rhythm and flow. But if they're getting offensive rebounds, putting it back, scoring, hollering, high five, now James Young comfortably takes threes. Harrison comfortably takes threes. And at that point, you're not beating Kentucky. So I just think if UConn can make the game ugly enough to where those talented players but young players can't get any kind of a rhythm, I think UConn's got a slight advantage.
Man, I think if it's below 70 for the winner, and like you said, UConn is the team that's going to get the W because they're better suited for it, and Kentucky wants to be up in the 70s. I don't know how it's going to happen. We can sit up here and we can analyze it to death. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's an educated guess at this point. You see my bracket?
Yeah,
I'll just that's what I think of my bracket right there.
Are you cleaning that up?
I'll have to clean it up here a little bit.
Oh, we got people for that. That's right.
I got people.
We got people.
Yeah, people that will tell me to clean that up. So, I'll get that here in a little bit. I'm guessing Kentucky's going to win. He's picking Connecticut to win. So.
Just a guess. So, but I'm only
that's where we are. We've done this bracket talk for 2 weeks, and we've just been real confident. We've told you about, we were talking about Baylor a couple weeks ago. Baylor is going to beat Creighton, and we felt so good whenever they did. But now I'm so demoralized after my last team is gone that I'm just like, at this point, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just guessing. So,
but I say this all the time, and I tell people this all the time. I'm not a prognosticator. I don't like when I do bracket challenges. Yes, I've won a few in my lifetime, but it's probably less than 10% of the ones I've ever entered. I'm not a game picker. I tell you what can happen. I tell you the matchups. I can analyze it for you. I can't guarantee who's going to win. So, don't come to me for fill out the bracket. I'm not going to get you a perfect bracket. I'm not going to pick every game right. I can tell you if so-and-so happens, then this team will win or that team will win. I'm assuming UConn's going to do X, Y, and Z and win a close game. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. And what are you going to do? You didn't pay anything for this advice.
Well, and you look at the ESPN guys. They all picked Michigan State to win it all. They didn't get past the Elite Eight. So, these guys are paid professionals, and they do this. They study these games and these teams, all year long. So, at this point, we're down to 2, and we'll see tonight. 8-10 tip tonight between the Connecticut Huskies and the Kentucky Wildcats, the highest 2-seeded teams when you combine seeds ever in the NCAA tournament.
And then what? Right afterwards, tradition, one shining moment.
Yes.
I know they've got it edited and cut up already. Yeah. Well, they probably got to add the championship. Yeah. The moments that's going to be on there. And, it's tough because, they probably don't have the final product because they got to insert the championship game clips too. But, they've got the other clips ready. Yeah, they got it close. And
they got holes for the good ones, the new ones. Are you getting goosebumps over here?
Dude, I love me some one shining moment.
I like it too.
The Luther version.
It's got to be the Luther version. You can't go with some of that other crap that they put out there.
The rock version.
Yeah, no way. That's just ridiculous. That's like changing the national anthem to auto-tune or something.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Like Christina Aguilera.
We'll take Whitney Houston for $500, Alex. You just leave her as the national anthem singer for all eternity, and we'll be all right with that. So anyway, I don't know what I was going to with that, but Kentucky, UConn, one of us is going to be happy on Wednesday, relatively speaking. All right, let's hit our break. We've got a little bit more NBA basketball. Now we've talked a little college basketball. It's time for some NBA. Are the Pacers in trouble? They've done all this talking about getting the 1 seed, and now they're a couple games out of it. They got one more game against the Heat, and then I'm going to look at a little bit of Kevin Durant information. He's probably going to be the MVP, but should he be feeling the quote-unquote ring pressure? We'll be talking about that right after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Gonna hit a little NBA here on a Monday, halfway through the Sports Blitz. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Emily Young in the Cogswell Motors studios. We've been talking about Miami and Indiana, the Heat and the Pacers, all year long, and one of the things that I found impressive early on was that the Pacers were not backing down from the expectations. They weren't backing down from the Heat. They weren't backing down from the fact that they wanted that #1 seed, and they were in the driver's seat even down to 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They were in the driver's seat. They'd beaten the Heat for the second time on the season. They're 2-1 against the Heat. They've got one more game coming up next week, and they were sitting pretty. I saw a stat that said if the Heat won, they'd have a 45 odds of winning the #1 overall seed, and if the Pacers won, they'd have like an 89-11 advantage as far as percentage chance to get the #1. Well, now Miami sits a game up in the East as Indiana they've gone 3-7 in their last 10 games while Miami's gone 7-3. They've fallen off the pace in a big way, and at one point yesterday they were down 42-15 at home in the first half there. So they just have had a rough go of it, and it looks to me, Weldon, like the Miami Heat are sitting pretty to get that #1 overall seed in the East, and they haven't even really tried to get it.
Yeah, it's right. It's fallen into them. It's fallen right in their laps. And I look at the Pacers, and their lack of offense. I've always felt like it'll be their ultimate downfall. Although I will say this, I'm not going to pick on the Pacers today because I felt like 42-15 to the Atlanta Hawks at home is an aberration. I can't sit here and be like, see, because the Pacers, they're a good team. When I get on them, it's relatively speaking, it's relative to the other elite teams in the league. They have no business losing to Atlanta, although Atlanta's a borderline playoff team in the East. Still, they shouldn't be losing to people like that, especially 42-15. But I'll say this though, the Pacers, they really wanted the #1 seed. They talked about it. They went out and they busted their behinds every night to get it and put up that effort in. And if it doesn't pay off, it's going to have really a double whammy effect. Frank Vogel said, his team was tired. Roy Hibbert was tired. A lot of people didn't believe that, and maybe some of it was a lie, but I think there was some truth in it too. Roy Hibbert, he's on pace to play all 82 games. That's something you don't see from a man his size. They have some youth, but they also have some older guys on that team too. So, playing hard every single night and playing guys every night can take its toll on you. I don't think it's that big of a deal just because you look at Indiana, no matter how poorly they're playing, I think most of us agree they're still going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And if you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, you don't just wake up and get there. You have to win 2 series. Now, granted, they're going to be playing teams that aren't that great the first 2 series, but you still have 8 victories worth of confidence entering that Eastern Conference Finals. So I think when we get to this point, Miami, Indiana, game 1, I don't think we're going to be talking about this as much because Indiana will have won 2 series. They'll be feeling good. I think they'll be ready when they get to Miami.
That's a good point. One thing that just keeps creeping up in my mind when I hear about the Pacers is that I guess it was Roy Hibbert a couple weeks ago who said there's some selfish dudes in this locker room, and that's just not something you can have. And that may be why he's sitting his butt down in the second half of that game last night. But he was 0 for 5. He played like 9 minutes. He just wasn't playing all that well, and they were getting blown out. But it seems like his teammates have kind of had enough of him speaking out on their behalf, or just trying to call them out rather than lead by example. So that kind of does make me wonder. But then when you think about it, like Weldon said, they're going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals because everybody else in the East sucks. Okay, just bar none. I'm sorry to say it, but right now the way it's setting up, Miami, Atlanta, if that's more than a 5-game series for Miami, shame on you. Indiana, Charlotte, if you lose a game, I'm sorry, you're just not very good. That's your fault. It'll be Toronto, Washington. I just can't wait to watch that series in the 3-6 matchup. And then the 4-5 Chicago, Brooklyn. It's the same thing it was last year, if I'm not mistaken.
It was.
So really in the Eastern Conference, there's not a whole lot aside from Miami and Indiana. So if those two teams don't match up in the Eastern Conference Finals, something is wrong. But Indiana, man, they've been beating themselves. And like you said, they'll have to have worked out the kinks by the time they get to Miami anyway. So that would be an interesting thing. And Miami having home court, maybe already inside Indiana's head too. So that's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. So I guess Miami's got 76. They got 6 more games left, and the Pacers have 4 left in their regular season. So they've got to make up some ground. Luckily for Indiana, Miami has to play them one more time, and of course it's in Miami, if I'm not mistaken, and Miami has more chances to lose, like they took advantage of on Friday night in double overtime against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So we'll see how that turns out. On the flip side, though, in the Western Conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder 7-3 in their last 10. They lost their last 2 though. Lost to who was it last night? Somebody got them. The Suns got them last night. And Kevin Durant surpassed Michael Jordan, 41 straight games with 25 or more points. Just a great streak for him. Offensively, they're scoring 106 points a game this year. They're just scoring at will. Kevin Durant, it's nasty because he'll stand at the top of the key with somebody right here, and then he'll just fade away and shoot it anyway. It's just like nobody else even can take that shot.
No.
And you're able to hit it with regularity. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from Kevin Durant, but you brought up a point in the pre-show that I think we had to do a little bit of looking because at this point in his career, LeBron James was getting hammered because he, in his 4th season, took the Cleveland Cavaliers to the finals. They got stroked by the Spurs, if you'll remember. They got swept in 4 games. It was all over but the crying. LeBron just got them there by himself, pretty much. It was the worst team I've ever seen in the finals. And from then on, the pressure just continued to build, and Skip Bayless kept calling him the ringless king, and he's the best player to never win a ring, and blah blah blah, all this stuff about how nothing was going to be set for him, and nothing was going to be settled about his greatness in history until he won a title. Are we getting there with Kevin Durant?
I think we should be. Now, I was thinking about this a little more. I suppose I can understand why we haven't because, LeBron James, since, a junior in high school, he's been sort of ordained to be this. And so it was a long time went between, being on the cover of Sports Illustrated and finally winning a title. Kevin Durant, well, he was a 5-star. The pressure wasn't always on. But I think we need to start looking, though. I can't say that we should have already been looking, but I think it's time because he set the bar high, for one thing. Kevin Durant's no longer among the best players in the game. He is clearly the number 2 guy, in my opinion. I don't know who. It's a distant third, whoever else you want to put. They're way in the back.
Yeah.
So he is clearly on that plane with LeBron James. They're the 2 best players in the game. Okay, so now that you've established that precedent, we need to start looking at you not just as a prolific scorer who's a great all-around player. It's time for us to look at you in playoff situations, in big-time winning situations. He didn't play well against Memphis last year. And, he wasn't used to not having Russell Westbrook. I'll give him a little bit of a break for that. But a lot of people expected more from him in that playoff series against the Grizzlies. He didn't do it. This is a big playoff series or playoff run for him. If he bows out, before the West Finals or even in the West Finals, I think, people are going to start looking at him because now I think we agree he'll be an MVP at that time. By the time the finals get here, he'll be an MVP, scoring champion, multiple time scoring champion. And now it's time to win hardware. You've done everything else except win a ring, and we'll start looking at him.
And you know how I am with stats. I like to give credit where it's due. LeBron and the things that he's doing, still very, very impressive, down just a little bit. But Kevin Durant, statistically speaking, has been incredible this year. 32 points per game. He's going to be the scoring champ, like Weldon said. Averaging, if you're rounding up, he's at 5.6 assists and 7.6 rebounds. He's averaging 32 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists a game. That is ridiculous. That is very, very good basketball from Kevin Durant. But really, if you look back, and I want to compare apples to apples here, we're talking about Kevin Durant versus LeBron James. Michael Jordan said Kevin Durant's the best player in the league. Michael Jordan's also an idiot when it comes to talking about basketball and not playing it. But he said that Kevin Durant's the best player in the world, and if that's the case, I remember we were sitting in the Tech radio studio talking about how I was screaming it from the mountaintop that LeBron James was better than Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was still up here at that point. Statistically speaking, LeBron had better numbers, but Brad and I would just gripe at each other about how he said Kobe's still the guy because Kobe's team was winning championships. And I was saying LeBron was the better player because he was putting up better numbers. Well, now the tables have sort of turned because Kevin Durant, as good as he is, and now he's putting up numbers that are comparable or even better than LeBron James. His team's not winning the championships. LeBron has won the last two. So, it comes time now where there's no excuse. Like we were talking about just a second ago with LeBron James versus Kobe Bryant. LeBron James was being judged on winning championships, even though statistically speaking he was better than Kobe Bryant. If you want Kevin Durant to be talked about, Michael Jordan, Brad, anybody else who would talk about Kevin Durant being better than LeBron, and I'm putting words in Brad's mouth, he hasn't said that, but if you would say that Kevin Durant's better, now there's no excuse because LeBron had Kobe. Now Kevin Durant has LeBron, that he's got to go ahead and get that ring. It doesn't matter that there are great players left in the league. If you want to be considered one of the best, you got to win a championship. And that's just all there is to it for Kevin Durant.
I agree. And you have a player like Russell Westbrook. Look, they've had their pains together, but still,
Russell Westbrook's a freak.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook's a superstar. And so you've had him for a majority of your career, your whole career. You've had Russell on your team. Some of the LeBron teams, Mo Williams. That was LeBron's Russell Westbrook was Mo Williams back in. So you look at that comparison there. Look, and Kevin Durant's sensational, but you think Michael Jordan, and it's like the scores mentality. I think those scores always stick together. Because Kevin Durant, that prolific scorer, Michael's going to stick with that because look, Michael didn't do some of the things LeBron James from a rebound and from an assist standpoint. Maybe a little bit of insecurity, dare I say. When you poke at Michael, he's going to poke back if he feels a little bit insecure on something.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant's the scorer. He was more of a scorer. It may be a safer choice for him to identify with.
Well, and Michael Jordan, like it or not, he's got to feel the pressure that LeBron James is coming for you. And he's got to feel a little bit more safe that Kevin Durant is a completely different player, and he can't. There have been guys like Kevin Durant before.
Yeah.
There's never been a guy like LeBron James before, and Michael Jordan, as stupid as I just called him, he ain't that stupid to know that LeBron, to think that LeBron James, because there was never anybody like Michael Jordan before him. There were great players, but nobody just absolutely dominated in the way Michael Jordan did. And LeBron James, what he's doing right now, if he's able to continue this career arc, and we've been talking about this for 4 or 5 years, the things that LeBron James has done now, he's taken Michael Jordan's records in another, it's like youngest players to ever do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Now he's still in the prime of his career, going for his 3rd championship in a row, something that hasn't been done since. So, he's doing things that can kind of put him on Michael Jordan's radar and in the conversation. And Jordan doesn't want that.
No. You
know how he is as far as just watch his Hall of Fame induction speech if you want to know how Michael Jordan is as a human being. I don't have anything for Michael Jordan the person.
You see that chip shot Michael hit the other day, though, that 50-foot chip shot in the celebrity golf tournament. Michael turning up like he did back in Game 6. Michael's trying to turn it around. He's in the East and he's gonna make the playoffs probably for the first time ever, a few times in his ownership career.
I think they made it as the 8th seed a couple years ago.
Yeah, was he? What was his stake in the team?
He might have just been.
He might have been a minority or something.
He might have been a minority.
He drafted Kemba Walker, who Kimba's no superstar by any stretch, but he's not as bad as his other picks. So, yeah, I'm going to give Michael a little bit of credit on that, too. But I agree with you. The way Michael's wired. And the thing what's funny is, let's say 3-4 years from now, when Kevin Durant is seriously, if he's threatening to be, on Michael Jordan status, he's going to flip on.
He's going to find somebody else.
He's gonna flip
be
on
like, nah, I'm more of a fan of that guy who's
Yeah.
down here. We got you, Michael. We know what you're doing. We know what you're trying to play at. All right, we got to hit our final break of the show because we've got some hog talk right after the break. The spring scrimmage, Nolan Richardson news, Razorback baseball defeated the number 1 team in the country in a series. That's what I'm talking about, Hogs. Moved into the top 25. Lots of hog talk as we tie a bow on a Monday right after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Got a couple answers to our CrossFit Russellville poll question from our good friend Corey Williams, who wants to let us know he'll go with Kentucky tonight in the national championship game. And on the other side, he said after Brandon Allen's flawless performance in a fall scrimmage last year that made everyone go gaga, I'll hold judgment on the sacks. We talked earlier about the 11 sacks that the Arkansas defense got on the quarterbacks during the first spring scrimmage. Were you encouraged or discouraged by that? And like Weldon's mentioned before, and he'll mention again here in a moment, we talked about it in the pre-show. There's always positive and negative, but really, to me, I'm more of a pessimist when it comes to this because you're playing against your own defense, you're playing against your own offense. So if your defense is great, your offense sucks. If your offense is great, your defense sucks. And so you've just got issues either way. And for Arkansas to give up 11 sacks, note, Trey Flowers did not play.
That's the kicker.
If your best defensive player doesn't play and you can still get 11 sacks, you better have run 300 plays. For your defense to get 11 sacks, and that's great for Deatrick Wise to get a couple sacks. It's great but at the end of the day, man, I want to see the back seven play well. I want to see the linebackers and safeties and corners make some plays. So you've got we knew the defensive line was better than everybody else on the defense. I would like for the defensive backs and all of them to get to kind of prove themselves a little bit. So I can see some positives and some negatives as well. And also, Corey, he mentioned he said he really hopes we'll bring up the greatest streak in sports entertainment was broken last night when Brock Lesnar pinned The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I'm sorry, but Corey, I've told you this before. I stopped caring about wrestling at about 14. I blame Mom for that because she found I went with my dad to watch Raw in Oklahoma City at the old Myriad, right? And I watched Stone Cold and DX, and those are my guys, man, WWF. And I had a foam finger from Stone Cold. You know what he did a lot, so that foam finger was not an appropriate one. And then the DX finger, and it had the X, and it had inappropriate things written across it. So Mom found those, tore them up into small pieces, and burned them in front of me. And they were weird, nasty looking colors and fumes. It was just, and so I was done with wrestling about that time. Sort of grew out of it a little bit, but. Sorry, we missed WrestleMania, so we don't get to really break it down.
When the merger, when WCW went under a merge or whatever, that's when I got out of it because I was more of a WCW guy. I know those guys went over, but it wasn't the same to me after that. And I was a big Goldberg fan too when Goldberg was running the show. But as far as the scrimmage, I've been doing more looking at this. Obviously it wasn't televised or anything. I wasn't up there. I did see, and this makes a difference a little bit to the sack. Still no excuse. But if you are working situations, I don't know how many third and long-ish situations they were running. But if they were running, 20 third and longs in a row, and everybody knows you're passing, still no excuse for 20 sacks. You should be executing. But if it's cut up and segmented a little bit more, could be a little more forgiving. If you're working goal line and you're running some bootleg and the bootleg doesn't go off well. But still no legitimate excuse, but it may change the tenor of things given how you're emphasizing situations. I'm looking at this offensive line. I mean, credit to the defense, but Arkansas has got to be able to pass protect. I mean, I know they're going to be a physical run-first team, but Coach Bielema's vision for the program is to be a pro-style NFL-like offense, and you still have to be able to throw the ball in various situations. You have to have a proficient passing game to go along with your running game. Brandon Allen, his numbers and his production really wasn't a surprise. He dinked it. He dunked it a little bit. He was efficient. What's a little bit is A.J. Derby is still number 2 on the depth chart. Austin Allen has yet to pass him. We may see Austin eventually get past him, but you can say A.J. improved all you want. I don't know, Mark, if I can envision that much improvement to where he's the legitimate number 2.
Well, if he's playing at all, it's bad. So let's go. I'll change directions here. Mike Irwin from KNWA, River Valley Leader content partner in Northwest Arkansas, wrote up a pretty good press release here from the spring game, a little bit of a practice report, talking about how the Razorbacks played in this scrimmage, and this is where we're going to get our information. Obviously, we weren't there, but 11 sacks for 71 yards and losses. They picked off a couple passes, swatted away 3 more, and the defense forced a fumble. Brandon Allen was 85% passing. That, to me, is a head scratcher because I like Brandon Allen, and I'm not going to be one who's going to bash him, but for him to complete 85% of his passes tells me one of two things. Either A, those passes were way too easy, he's just dumping down and nothing stretching the field at all, or if they were stretching the field and the defensive backs were horrible. So there's my pessimism for the day. But he did throw for 247 yards and a touchdown, so maybe folks can get off his back a little bit. That's not going to happen, though, until he does it in a game. But Coach Bielema said, what I liked is and we're speaking to Brandon Allen, his natural reaction now is to move up in the pocket instead of dancing around or escaping outside. He really stepped it up and made some nice plays because of it. Now, Bielema did announce that he's taking it easy on a couple of players during the spring just to keep them from injury. Trey Flowers didn't scrimmage. Jonathan Williams just taking a lot less of the load during the spring, as you've got guys like Alex Collins and Corliss Marshall. Corliss Marshall was out with what a lot of people are saying was probably a concussion. Not sure, haven't confirmed that, but that's the theory right now. And then there was some talk. We've heard talk about Alex Collins possibly being unhappy. We haven't reported a whole lot of that on here because we can't really confirm anything, but he was asked and he addressed the rumors that sophomore running back Alex Collins has been in the coach's doghouse for not taking the team's winter conditioning program seriously, by saying he's had so much success in his life that when he had a bump in the road, he had a tendency to try to do things his own way. He had to learn how we do things here. I couldn't be more pleased with where he's at. He had to grow a lot. He had to earn the respect of some of his teammates, and I think he's doing that bit by bit. He said of rumors that Collins was considering transferring from Arkansas, it's baseless, it's completely clueless and senseless. And then he went on to say Collins had 8 carries for 38 yards in the scrimmage. It's good news to me to hear that Alex Collins is kind of getting back into good graces, and maybe there was something to the fact that old Ched said he was getting a little chunky there, not taking the conditioning program seriously.
Yeah, and it's good to see Alex back in line, because it's one thing to have a great talent on your team, but it's another thing to have that talented player be a leader and be somebody who's falling in line, because it really doesn't do anything for your team if he's talented but he's doing his own thing. He's trying to buck the system. That's counterproductive for everybody. And so there's some hard lessons that have to be learned and have to be taught. So I give Coach Bealham a high marks for that. I like what I heard, what you read about Brandon Allen and his willingness to climb in the pocket. One of the toughest things to get a quarterback to do is to keep his eyes down the field in distress, and to get him to where he wants to climb the pocket rather than look lateral and try to run laterally. And it's not just mobile quarterbacks. It's a lot of young quarterbacks, until they get comfortable, until they get in the habit of climbing the pocket and continue to look down the field, even if there's some trash and traffic around, because it's not a whole – you can do drills. If you watch George Whitfield's workouts with his quarterbacks, Andrew Luck, Johnny Manziel, who have the broom out there and doing it, you can do drills, but it's really hard to teach unless you're in a live situation. And so to see Brandon naturally doing that now, I think it'll go a long way. And I think you and I are in the same boat, or at least I'm not as down on Brandon Allen as a lot of people. I understand that the Southern Miss game was really early in the year, and I think that injury lingered more than what people let on throughout the season. I want to see Brandon with the whole offseason in this system with a healthy shoulder. I still think he has a chance to be a productive quarterback.
And I'm the exact same. I also want to see him with receivers that won't drop every freaking pass he throws.
That's another thing.
And a line that can block for him. They had one guy who I really trusted last year in Swanson, and he was a center. You can't trust either one of your – 2 new tackles this year. The whole offensive line retooled this year. I'm just going to be reserving judgment on Brandon Allen until A, someone beats him out, or B, he plays healthy and just doesn't play well. Because until that happens, I can't really judge him.
Yeah, and in that offensive line, that's another good point. That line should be a lot better. The 11 sacks, we talked about that. But you look at Denver Kirkland, who I've heard nothing but great things. He looks like that future NFL draft pick that we thought he'd be when he came to campus. Skipper moving out to tackle. I think the offensive line should be fine. Again, the 11 sacks, we'll have to see if that's something more of a blip than a trend. But I think I have confidence in this O-line. The receiving corps showing a lot of depth now. You look at guys like Demetrius Wilson, obviously leading the way, and Hatcher. Obviously, you look at young guys like a Cody Hollister or Drew Morgan. JoJo Robinson will be on campus later on. So out of that group, I don't know who's going to come up out of that group, but surely they can find something reliable, because they have a lot of names and a lot of guys who can. I'm going to hope they can find something out of that group.
They're going to have to. And to your point, I do think I did hear a little bit about it, and I did hear that they did do a lot of situational stuff. It's going to be 3rd and 2, 4, 8, 12, just things like that to sort of prepare for certain situations. So that probably did contribute. That's a good point to the way the guys got sacks, and they got a little bit of a tip to what's coming. But, at the end of the day, you're going to have to play in those situations in games, so you're going to have to know what to expect from those situations too. So, I don't read a whole lot from the scrimmage, but that's what I read. Baseball. Hogs got 2 of 3 from South Carolina, number 1 team in the country, came to Fayetteville and goes home with their tail tucked between their legs, got beat by our Hogs, moved up to number 24 in the country, right where they should have been. I was down a little bit on the Hogs baseball team and still wonder if they can hit when it comes down to it, but they hit the number 1 team in the country, and they got a series win. That's a good one for Dave Van Horn.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be not a long season as far as being terrible. It's going to be long as far as a lot of ups, a lot of downs. I think they're going to lose series to bad teams. It's going to be up and down, but this was an important series for Arkansas. And one thing that I think we can feel good about, this team can flat out pitch. They're different names. Trey Killian was a young player last year. Now he goes 7 2/3. They lose the game 1 of the series in which he pitched, but he still gave him 2 runs of ball in 7 2/3. Jalen Beeks, he's he's been the guy. You look at him sort of a role player, marginal, midweeks type starter, earlier in his career. He's now the guy. He's the new Stanek, the new Baxendale. He goes 9 innings of shutdown baseball, gave up a run, but it was unearned, so essentially he gave up no runs. And then Chris Oliver has been solid too, and he pitched game 3. So, Mark, the pitching is there. You're right about the offense. I thought it was interesting. Benintendi moved to the 2-hole in the final game, and Tyler Spoon was lead off. You still have Serrano and Anderson in the middle of that lineup. When they're hitting, I think it helps everybody else around them. So I think those are the players I want to watch. Serrano and Anderson, what they can do, and if those guys at the top of the order can give them something to knock in.
Finally, before we get out of here, big congratulations to former Razorback basketball coach Nolan Richardson being named and elected into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. A lot of controversy on the Hill about how he hasn't been recognized by the university before he was nominated and elected initially into the Basketball Hall of Fame. There's a lot that goes into that, folks. You sue your university, and then you want them to put a statue up for you. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it cannot be debated that Nolan Richardson is one of the greatest coaches and figures in basketball history.
Yeah.
Won everywhere he went. Won in, I believe he won a high school championship. I know he won in junior college and NIT and the championship. So he in the NCAA tournament championship. So he is a transcendent figure in basketball. A huge congratulations to Nolan Richardson. It's only a matter of time, Weldon, before he is honored. It's Nolan Richardson Court or Nolan Richardson Practice Facility or whatever on the campus of the University of Arkansas. But regardless of that, this is an even bigger honor than that.
Yeah, he's one of my 2 or 3 favorite figures in all of sports is Coach Richardson. I can't say how much I have a respect for him. I've even learned a lot from him. The court and the naming and the honor, it's getting there. You mentioned the lawsuit. You have to mention it. It is a part of it. I thought Jeff Long, criticize him all you want. I think the best thing he's done is getting Nolan Richardson back on campus, the honorings, the ceremonies during games, start rebuilding that relationship. I still don't think it's rebuilt to the point to where courts and things will be named after him. That may be a few more years, but I think it's getting to that point, and there's no question he's worthy of it.
Well, all right, we got to get out of here. We're out of time. Congratulations again to Nolan Richardson and the Razorback baseball team for winning their series. We'll talk a lot more Hogs this week. We'll be talking on Wednesday about a national championship. One of us is going to be right. I'll take UConn women.
Yeah, UConn.
You gonna take UConn?
I like Notre Dame.
Well, hey, that means you would have UConn women and men winning it again. What did it happen in 04?
A few years ago, yeah.
Is it 04? It could have happened I don't know. It could have happened 100 different times.
Every time the men win it probably happens.
You could just guarantee that because the women win it every time. So we'll be talking on Wednesday about plenty more. You can give us a call between 11 and noon, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 968 News. But for Weldon and Emily today, who did a good job filling in for Maddie, I'm Mark, saying so long. We'll see you at 11 o'clock on Wednesday with more Sports Blitz.